Hello there, folks. NHS consultants were on strike for 2 days this week, and of course that annoyed the usual suspects, like the concrete farmer and Julia Haight Brewer, you know, people who have never done a proper day's work in their lives. Jacob Rees-Mogg is another who couldn't contain his displeasure at consultants rejecting the 6% recommended by the supposedly independent pay review body, which, as everybody by now knows, is about as independent as Martin Tyler when commentating on a Manchester United game. There's something rather galling about watching Rees-Mogg attempting to sell NHS privatisation to his viewers in his own discreet way. I'm almost certain he has many working class viewers who depend on the NHS, whereas Mogg himself, worth over £100 million, need not worry if it were sold off to the highest bidder. And of course, that is precisely what he wants to happen. He believes in a small state and a free market. These same consultants Mogg is annoyed get paid over £100,000 per year. He would be absolutely fine with raking in over £1 million a year if the healthcare in our country was entirely privately operated. Mogg's objective is to retain as much of his own wealth as possible, and when he sees 10% of GDP going towards the NHS, a service he does not need because he is rich enough to pay for top-end private healthcare, that is 10% that could go towards lowering his personal tax burden. And that is how the mind of a Rees-Mogg operates. We are now going to watch him getting into a ruck with Dr. Kevin O'Kane, who is the London Regional Council Chair for the British Medical Association. And as per usual, Jacob Rees-Mogg hardly comes out of this smelling of roses. Let's take a look.
Strikes. The message to the Prime Minister is we don't want to be in strike today. It's his making. He's blocking talks.
This is completely bogus to say you don't want to be on strike when you've gone on strike. You have free will. You don't have to go on strike.
Isn't free will wonderful? We could have a nice theological conversation about that one, but I don't think it'll take us any further in Westminster.
But you have decided to go on strike. To blame it on other people is not serious. You have made this choice to go on strike, to represent people who are going on strike, because they're not satisfied with the pay review body that almost everybody else is.
We're not satisfied with 14 years of pay cuts. We've done everything in our power to avoid strikes. We wrote to Steve Barclay 2 days ago saying, come and speak to us. He hasn't done that. He said one meeting with the Secretary of State is one meeting with doctors in 7 months. The Prime Minister is a roadblock personally to having talks. We can't go on like this. Doctors are not doing this as some sort of capricious free will trip. This is something we're taking.
They're paid an average of £128,000 a year.
Come on now.
And they are now saying they're withdrawing their labour as if they're on the breadline.
This is another load of drivel that rather winds me up. The idea that one has to reach the brink of the breadline before taking industrial action. No. I'd rather take action long before I reach that point, thanks.
This is surely not serious. And it's leaving patients in pain.
But come on, I can't believe...
It's leaving patients in pain, he says. This is a guy who advocates for the NHS not even existing. You just know in the strange world of Jacob Rees-Mogg, there would be millions not covered under his healthcare system. It's obvious. So for him to say, oh, but you're leaving people in pain, is...
that you're using this type of moral blackmail here. Now, are you personally in a position where you can talk austerity to public sector workers?
The public sector workers can only be paid what the taxpayer can fund.
There is limited. No. The government decides how.
No,
the government decides how will it spend the money. Now, if you decide that you want to avoid.
Okay, so where are you taking this money from?
We're taking this money from general taxation, and we have different types of taxation. You're deciding not to tax utility companies. You're deciding not to tax multinationals. But you're happy to tax public sector workers.
We are more highly taxed than we have been in 70 years. There is no
We've had a
room.
Conservative government for 14 years.
Yeah,
where taxes have gone through the roof.
I'm not proud of
But
this.
it's your track record, so don't blame doctors for your own tax record.
Where is this extra money coming from?
It's up to you to decide how you balance the books. It's not up to me to tell you how to fund your health
balance
service.
the books
And
by
it is
saying that
not
people
up to
paid
doctors.
£128,000 a year are doing pretty well.
Well, I could say that MPs pay £84,000 a year, doing pretty well. But how many of you second jobs?
Not actually very many. I do, but actually
Absolutely.
not very many MPs have second jobs.
Quite a number.
Those figures that were released recently regarding MPs and second jobs, according to the chart that I had a quick look at before this, over half of MPs were paid somewhat of a second income for something or other. Some obscenely high, like Liz Truss and Boris Johnson, and some extremely low, like Tim Farron of the Liberal Democrats.
Quite a lot of surgeons have second jobs.
I'm sorry, that's not correct. Less than roughly 30% of doctors do any private work. They don't earn £802 an hour presenting television programmes. A junior doctor's on £14 per hour. You cannot talk austerity to
You will
doctors.
find that some surgeons earn a great deal. You'll find some MPs have second jobs too.
Many
This isn't
MPs
really
have
the
second
point.
jobs.
Not many, actually.
Well, you're
Most
suggesting-
dependent on their MP's salary. But
expenses.
they're still paid less than surgeons, which is fine.
You may not have heard that from the doctor as Jacob Rees-Mogg was talking, but he correctly pointed out MPs also get every expense paid. So it's £82,000 with almost no work outgoings whatsoever. For example, I'm paid a lot less and I have to fund my own season ticket to work, which is some £4,500 a year. Lucky me.
Fine, I'm not arguing for more pay for members of Parliament. It's a question of people on £128,000.
People are not
leaving
the
their patients in pain.
£128,000. Let's
How
parse
does
that
this-
figure.
how
Your
does
figure
this
is wrong.
meet your hypocritical oath?
Well, Hippocratic oath is something else we need to talk about. You're a bit out of date in that one. But going back to the doctor's salaries, it's 96.
You don't want to talk about
It's
Hippocratic
96 to roughly 120-something thousand. To get to 120-odd thousand, you will have been a doctor you'll been in training for approximately 30-odd years, working for more than
This is
15
an
of them.
average. 128,000 is an average.
I'm 37 years a doctor. My hourly pay is £48. Have you ever tried calling out a plumber?
Well,
Let alone a television presenter.
It's completely different.
But what would you like doctors to be compared to? The point of the review body was to compare us.
You're paying the firm that employs the plumber. You're not paying the plumber.
When we had a review body put in place, it was to compare us to like professionals, to finance
As I say,
sector, to accountants,
you are
to
some of the
lawyers.
best
We have
paid-
fallen behind.
You are some of the best paid people in the country, and you're leaving patients in pain.
We're not
I
leaving
just don't
patients
think
in pain.
that's
That is
your duty.
that. Come on,
But
that's
we've
not
got-
true,
you
Jacob,
are,
and you
because
know
they're
that
not
very
getting
well.
operations.
That's not true.
We've had
that's
so
not
many
true.
people interviewed
7.5
who
million
need
on a
operations,
waiting list
need
under your
operations.
government, and you're trying to blame this as the Prime Minister didn't want
It's a
this.
10%
You're blaming
increase.
it on doctors.
I'm blaming part
Now,
of it on doctors, but sadly, we've got to end there. But thank you,
I'd love to
Dr.
see you again.
Kane. Very
This all goes back to how little credibility Tory MPs have left. Thus, their right to criticise anybody else for their actions is greatly diminished. They are so vulnerable to counterattacks, like what happened just here. "You're causing people pain," says Mogg, to which he gets the 7.5 million waiting list number thrown back in his face. It's the perfect riposte. Also, as soon as Smug starts banging on about anybody else wanting to be paid more, they can just come back at him with, "You're being paid £802 per hour for sitting here." The doctor was able to land both of these blows. We also have to park this idea of only poor people should be striking. The gap between the super rich and almost every other economic group is growing wider by the day, and everybody needs to be doing what they can to improve their lot, because there is not a cat in hell's chance Jacob Rees-Mogg or Rishi Sunak are going to willingly make decisions to close the gaps between themselves and us plebs. Thus, I support everybody demanding their fair share. And you should too. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again soon.